So welcome to this session. As you know that today is a technical Tuesday. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So good evening, everybody. So as part of GSS Health and Wellness Drive, today is a technical Tuesday. So we have invited Mr. Shashi Saswat, who is a certified energy manager from Bureau of Energy Efficiency, which comes under Ministry of Power, Government of India. So Mr. Shashi is having around 7 years of rich experience in energy auditing, energy consultancy, and designing the complete HVAC and BMS system. He also have an expertise in evaluating guaranteed energy savings and develop energy service company models. So today's topic is HVAC operations and selections. Mr. Shashi will give more information on importance of equipment of HVAC, selection of chillers, selection of pumps, selection of cooling towers, and optimizing technologies beyond BMS. So I would like to welcome Shashi to take further GSS Technical Tuesday session. Over to you, Shashi.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for introducing. So just I am sharing my screen.
Yeah.
Is it visible, sir?
Yeah, it's clearly visible.
So thank you so much, and thank you all for joining this session, and hope you all are good and safe in this pandemic time. So today we will see what is the role of HVAC system in a building or in an industry, and how we should select energy efficient equipment. So as we all aware, like the HVAC system in a building is a major energy guzzler. So which consumes almost 60 to 70% of the energy of total energy of the building. And out of this 60-70%, the major energy consumption equipment is a chiller, and rest pumps, cooling towers are the ancillary equipment which consumes the energy. So on this slide, we will see what is the role of capital cost and the operational cost for selecting a equipment. So like here we have taken an example of a 500 TR chiller. Okay, so you can see here, like for a 500 TR chiller, the capital cost of that chiller is around 100 lakhs. And if we operate this chiller at average 80% of load with 0.35 NPLV for a day, around like 18 hours per day, 30 days, and for 10 months, it total consumes around 7,50,000 kWh units. And if we multiply this value by unit cost of electricity, which is 10 rupees, the total OPEX cost of this chiller is 75 lakh rupees for a year. Okay, so you can see the difference, like the OPEX cost is almost 75% of the first cost of the chiller. So means we can here understand like OPEX cost is, operational cost is much more important than the capital cost. On this right side, we can see considering the life of a chiller for 25 years, and if we multiply this consumption 75 lakhs into 25 years, it comes around 1875 lakhs rupees. So if like this energy consumption is for a life cycle of 25 years of the chiller. So if we save at least 10% of the efficiency of the chiller at the design stage itself, like before buying a chiller, if we select a 10% more efficient equipment, then it will lead to save 18.75 crore rupees for its lifetime, right? Which is much more than the capital cost of that equipment, which is 100 lakhs or 1 crore rupees. So it is saving almost 18 times than its capital cost. So we should here understand like OPEX cost is much more important than the capital cost. Now coming to this slide, earlier we used to think about the capital cost only, but nowadays people are thinking like the life cycle cost is more important than the capital cost. Earlier we used to focus on just COP of the chiller. Before buying a chiller, we just used the word COP, what is the COP of that chiller? But now we are evaluating the real world performance of that equipment chiller, and then we are comparing the that efficiency among various competitors. Earlier there were no focus on the certifications, but nowadays every customer is asking for AHRI certified chillers. Okay, because the certification will give more confidence in terms of performance and reliability. Earlier there were manual plant rooms. Okay, the manpower manually operates all the things based on his mindset, but nowadays there is a chiller plant optimizer in a place which will automatically run a complete HVAC system in a holistic manner. Earlier we were used to do like manual descaling, but now we have options to avoid this manual descaling and putting a automatic tube cleaning system on a chiller, which will further save energy cost. Earlier, like we were thinking for the conventional water cooled centrifugal and screw chillers, but nowadays with change in time, there are magnetic bearing chillers which are oil free, and there are efficient air cooled chillers also available in the present market. So now coming to the selection of chiller, how we do select a chiller. So first of all, we will see a basic points. Based on those, we need to decide whether we should go for a air cooled chiller or water cooled chiller. So first point is like availability of water and water quality. So like as we know, in a water cooled chiller system, we need a cooling tower which have evaporation losses. So where we need a continuous makeup of water which will evaporate into atmosphere and will cool down the condenser entering temperature. And for the same, we need a better water quality so that the equipment life can be enhanced. But there are sites, there are some locations in Rajasthan, in Gurgaon, or there are some norms where there is a limitation of water, like one can use this much of water. So the people cannot install water cooled chiller. So there we need to think for a air cooled chiller installations. Same way we have like availability of space. So availability of space is again a criteria, like there are buildings which have sufficient space in the basement or at the terrace, so they can go for a water cooled chiller plant room, because water cooled chiller plant room required more space, as we need to add on a condenser circuit as well. But in case of air cooled chiller, there is no need of cooling tower or condenser pump. So accordingly, the size of the plant room will reduce. So one can simply use a small space for installing the air cooled chillers at terrace. Then third point is the ambient conditions. So ambient conditions of that particular locations is like if the ambient conditions are very means there is a lot of rain, monsoon is there for a longer period. Okay, so there the water cooled chillers or the cooling tower will be facing some problems for giving a chilled cooling water. But there we can look for a air cooled chilling system. right? Because there we do not need any cooling tower system. And if there are some places where the ambient dry bulb temperature goes very high, in case of Rajasthan or some Jaisalmer, there we need to think like air cooled chiller is not a good solution, because it needs a colder air for cooling the condenser coil, for giving the output. So this point we need to take care while selecting the location. Then fourth point, and the very important point, is like capex and opex cost comparison. So before putting a new plant or retrofitting a chiller plant, we need to calculate the capex cost and the opex cost. So opex cost will depend on the efficiency of the HVAC system. So as we are aware, like water cooled system is having good efficiency, better efficiency as compared to air cooled chillers. So if the site is um, if the site is uh, if the site is running for a 24 hours, and we know like the annual energy consumption will be high for that location, then we should think for a water cooled installation. If we have all the three factors in our favor, means we have sufficient water, sufficient space, ambient conditions are also favorable, there is dry season for a longer time, cooling towers can work better at those places. So there we need to go for a water cooled chiller system, because that will have a lowest capex and opex cost in the place. On the other hand, if there are areas where ambient is too high, means air cooled chillers are not much more successful, there we need to think for a substitute solution of the water cooled chiller. So now coming to the another selection criteria, which is based on the capacity of the chiller. So as we aware, like we have scroll chiller compressors, screw compressor, centrifugal compressors. So now in this slide, we have divided those compressors into a capacity range. Okay. So as we aware, like we need small chillers also in the market, but for small chiller requirement, it is recommended to go for a scroll compressors. Okay, so there are air cooled scroll compressors are there, air cooled chillers, which are available from 18 TR up to 140 TR of capacity. But if we go for a medium range, say 100 TR to 500 TR or 600 TR, then we should go for a screw chiller machine. Okay, because the screw chillers in this capacity have the better efficiency in terms of saving the energy cost and all. So these screw chillers are available in water cooled as well as in air cooled chillers. Then beyond, like for higher capacity, like more than 250 TR up to 300 TR, we have centrifugal compressors, right? So centrifugal compressors are known for a higher capacity range chillers. So there are different OEMs which have the capacity limitations, but here I have shown a tentative range like up to 3000 TR. The single compressor, centrifugal compressor, can cater the load requirement. If the tonnage requirement is more than 3000 TR, then we have multi-stage compressors, centrifugal compressors in place, which can cater that load requirement. And over and above all these technology, we have oil-free magnetic compressors available in present market, and every OEM nowadays is having this kind of chillers in their product portfolio. So this is a revolutionary change in the market. Okay, so like as we aware, with the oil management system, there are a lot of issues in a chiller, like oil mixed with refrigerant, or sometime there is a leakage of oil, or there are some ancillary equipments for oil pumping arrangement and all, which is required for cooling the bearing in the machine. So with the oil-free magnetic compressors, there is no need of physical bearings, mechanical bearings. All those are replaced by electrical bearings, where the rotor moves in a magnetic levitation field. So there is no need of oil. This is completely a different technology upgradation in the chiller market. So nowadays there are customers, there are many premium customers who have purchased these chillers, and they are running since last 3-4 years or 5 years, and those chillers are performing very well. Means the efficiency of these chillers is best in class, and the duration is very lesser as compared to other chillers. So with time, the efficiency does not degrade for these chillers. So this is again a revolutionary change in the market. Now coming to some points which are very important before going for a chiller design, chiller selection, or before buying a new machine. So everyone, means either that is a technical person in a building or purchase guys there in the building, they should focus minimum these parameters before comparing a chiller between 3-4 OEMs, right? So first of all, for that particular building where we are going to retrofit a chiller, or if we are going to install a new chiller, we need to focus on these points. So first of all, we should study the loading pattern of that building. This is a very important point and key point. So we should know what is the loading pattern of that machine, right? So that we can decide the capacity of the machine, and we can also estimate the slab of the best efficiency range. Like if we know like from 60% to 80% of the loading, the chiller runs on its best efficiency. So we need to design a chiller capacity in such a way so that it can give a best efficiency at part load conditions, right? So this is a very lengthy exercise, and we need all the data from the, if there is an existing building, we need logbooks of that plant room. We need all the readings of flow rate. We need all the pressure drops. We need power consumption of the machine for a year or for a seasonal time, right? So second point is like best possible cooling water temperature to decide cooling water entering temperature. So for a chiller, there is a parameter of condenser entering temperature. Okay. So the condenser entering temperature before selecting a chiller needs to be evaluated based on the location of the site. If that site is in north, the condenser entering temperature will be different. If the site is situated in south, maybe some Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore, then the condenser entering temperature will be different. If the site is situated in Mumbai, Pune, or some near to some coastal region, then the condenser entering temperature will be different. So there are websites where we have all the weather data for a year. So based on that weather data, we need to derive a peak wet bulb temperature. Based on that, we have to derive the best possible cooling water outlet temperature, and then we need to select a chiller on that particular value. Either that is 90 degree F, 88 degree F, 89 degree F, that we need to look out based on the site condition, not based on the thumb rules, which there are many people are using in the market. Then third point is refrigerant use. This is also very important point. And nowadays there are n number of OEMs who are using different refrigerant, and each refrigerant is having different properties, right? So we have a chart in place where we can categorize the refrigerant based on their properties, right? So there are few machines which use negative refrigerant, and they have some their disadvantages in those refrigerant. So those kind of things we need to think before buying a chiller. Okay. Then there are refrigerant which are explosive. So there are some industry, there are some companies where there are norms not to use the explosive refrigerant. So all those things we need to take care. Then we need to think for a global warming potential, ozone depletion potential. Those all things we need to consider or need to check, evaluate before buying for a machine. Then water flow rate is also very important for designing a chiller. If there is an existing building, we need to check the existing pumping flow rates if we want to use the existing pumps for a new chiller. And then we need to ask OEM to design the machine near to those pumping system. If our pumping system is perfect, right? If the capacity is totally different as compared to existing, okay, then we need to think like we need to design this chiller on 2.4 on evaporator side. Then in condenser side, we have various options like 3 GPM per TR, 4 GPM per TR, 3.5 GPM per TR. So we need to first cross-check the selections on various points, and we need to calculate the overall kilowatt per TR of the plant room, not just chiller kilowatt per TR, because there are OEMs, they are manufacturers who generally play in this part. They push a machine with best efficiency by considering the higher flow rates, but they ignore the pumping cost, right? So we need to add that pumping cost also in the overall efficiency of the plant room. Then we need to compare with the other OEM. Then fifth point is pressure drop across heat exchangers. So like we need to choose a lowest best possible pressure drop which one OEM can offer. Okay. And then because this pressure drop will ultimately cause the head loss in the piping network, and that will lead to increase the pumping cost on the pumps. Then we have fouling factors, right? So fouling factors also we need to consider based on the site conditions, water quality parameters, and we need to decide these things accordingly. Then minimum capacity control requirement. So if there is site where we are going to install a 500 TR capacity chiller, but we aware like our chiller will run on maybe 20% of load in winter or during the time where the occupancy is very less. So we need to ask OEM that whether this chiller is capable to run on 20% load or not, right? So, and this information should be on the AHRI certificate or on the selection certificate, selection sheet. Okay, so if there are sites which have very huge load variation with time, then those particular clients or the person should focus on this minimum capacity control point. Then there is a AHRI certificate and selection sheet. So before buying a chiller, everyone should ask for a AHRI certificate of that particular model, not the series, because generally there are OEMs who get certified for a series, but there are some models which are not certified, but they sell those models into that series range. So we should be very careful for this AHRI certificate, because this AHRI certification will help us in gaining the trust that this machine is efficient. Whatever is written on the paper is truth, and that will perform at the site. So all the above parameters need to finalize at the initial level itself, and those parameters should be similar for all the OEM. Okay, so those OEM can select the machine based on these parameters, common parameters. There should not be any difference. So now coming to the weather data or the operating envelope of a particular location. So now the point comes regarding the VFD on the chiller, right? So we can study the loading pattern as well for choosing the role of VFD. We can study the weather pattern or the operating envelope of that site of the building before selecting the VFD based chiller. So you can see here in this graph, left side graph, it can be seen like 99% of the total time. Means out of annual running hours, 99% of the time the machine runs on the part loads, right? So only 1% of the time the machine run on full load design conditions, which we select. So this information tells us about, like, we should not compare the machine on the full load design only. Generally, the old thinking is like people were using COP of the machine for comparison purpose, or they just compare the full load design efficiency of two OEMs for selecting the machine. But it is not recommended, it is not truth, because the machine will run only 1% of time for on the full load condition, while rest of the time, which is 99%, the machine will run on the part load conditions. So we should focus on the part load efficiency of that machine also, right? And if we are going for a VFD based chiller, means we are aware our profile is variable, building profile is variable, the load quickly vary. So we need VFD. Now the question arises, there are competition, different OEMs who gives different kind of VFDs. Means there are some OEM which gives unit mounted VFD, means the VFD which is there on the top of the machine. There are OEMs who provide the VFD in a stand alone position, means we need to separately install that VFD in a plant room. There are OEMs who locally fit the VFD, means they purchase chiller once, then they purchase the VFD from some XYZ company and they fit or synchronize those VFD at site. So we need to cleverly look on these points as well before buying a machine, because the VFD is a key player in energy saving. So what VFD does? So VFD is a device which is used in a chiller for capacity control purpose. It regulates the motor speed and the refrigerant flow through PRV in centrifugal chillers. And the VFD itself is having a algorithm, or it should have a site based algorithm. Means there are OEMs who can provide a factory fitted VFD which can predict the loading pattern of the building, and that VFD will decide how the chiller can run in the efficient position. So those VFDs are completely synchronized with the machine, right? So this is one of the example where it is shown the comparison of two kind of VFD. In left side, you can see there is a machine wherein the VFD is unit mounted. You can see a panel near to this display. The VFD is unit mounted, means there is no separate VFD. So this VFD is OEM make, means this VFD is factory fitted. It is synchronized from factory. There is nothing done at site. So we can trust on this machine, like this VFD is completely synchronized with the compressor, with the other component, PRV and all, and it will run in a synchronized manner and it will give us maximum energy savings. It will meet our precise temperature requirement. There will not be any like holding of VFD at 50 Hertz, 45 Hertz. But in this right side, there is another example. There is an X OEM who does not have this kind of VFD on the machine, but they provide some local VFD from their some local suppliers, or maybe they directly purchase from some VFD OEM. They bring that at site and then they integrate this VFD with the machine. So the major point is here, this VFD will not be in a synchronized manner. This will not be completely synchronized. because it is not designed from the factory. It is site fabricated. But for a customer, it is VFD. So nowadays, what is happening? There are OEMs who are just selling out the chillers, who are just misguiding the customers. Like, we are providing the VFD with you, and you will not believe, for a 500 TR chiller, the cost difference between these two chillers will be more than 15 lakh rupees. Okay, and both are providing the VFD. So just 15 lakh additional cost is for a synchronization or for a complete factory fitted OEM make VFD, which will run for a till the lifetime of the machine. But in this kind of machines, we have seen a lot of hanging problem in the display. The VFD is running continuously on 50 hertz, which there is no advantage of energy saving. Ultimately, it is consuming higher than its full load ampere, because the VFD losses are also added into that main input of the power, because it is running at the 50 hertz. So we should compare all these things before going for a new chiller or before retrofitting the new chiller. So you can see this slide. This is a 1000 TR machine freestanding VFD. You can see the size. The size is too large. There are 3 compartments for cooling purpose. So this kind of VFD is having a lot of electrical component in this. If one of those component fails, the complete VFD will shut down, complete chiller will shut down, and your operation will stop. So this is completely a complex system, and this is air cooled VFD, and size is very large. So accordingly, the heat dissipation through this VFD is also very high, which contribute or which increase the overall plant room temperature, and which create a ventilation issues or increases the power consumption on the motors, or it can also lead to overheating of the pump motors, maybe chiller motor. So those kind of issues can be there. Now coming to the selection of pumps. So as we are aware, like pumps are the ancillary equipment of the plant room of the chiller, and these pumps are used for supplying the chilled water and condenser water to the chiller. So for a new building, we generally calculate head loss across the piping network. If it is chilled water system, we calculate the head loss through chiller, bend, pipe, then AHU coils, and we add all those head losses and we determine the head for selecting a new pump. And similarly, we are aware of the flow rate requirement of the building, which can be calculated through the load demand. And we give 2 data to the competition. One is flow rate and second one is head. And they do selection in their software, and they provide us the pumping set. Okay, this is for a new building. But for an existing building where already the pumps are there, which is running since last 7-8 years, and as we know, the life of a pump is approx 8 to 10 years. Okay, more than that we can run, but the energy consumption will increase because the efficiency duration is very high after 7-8 years, right? There will not be issues in reliability, but the energy consumption will increase. So we need to think, if the pumps are more than 8 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old, we need to think for retrofitting those pumps, because these pumps are very low hanging fruits, means we can quickly get the payback of this investment on the pumping replacement. So if there is an existing building, so first we need to calculate the efficiency of that pump, and if the efficiency is very less, say around 30-40%, and the design efficiency of that pump is say around 70-75%. So we can see the gap. There is a gap of more than 40%. Then one should immediately think that we should replace those pumps immediately. Second criteria is if our pumps are old or if our pumps are not old, means there are 2-3 years old pumps also there. There are buildings where the pumps are new, but those pumps were designed at initial level. So we should once get it checked, uh, we should get it audited, we should get its flow measurement, head measurement for calculating or evaluating the right duty points. Right duty points is like the current head requirement of the building we need to evaluate, because this current head requirement will be totally different from the designed one, because the design was there, the designed head was calculated based on the theoretical calculations or the software calculations considering the different head losses. But in actual, it is found 80 to 85% sites are there where there is a reduction in the current head, actual head. So with that actual head and the design flow rate, we can reselect or redesign the new pumps, and we will definitely have a lesser kilowatt pump in a place which can cater that requirement. So reduction in kilowatt rating of pumps by redesigning can be achieved quickly. Means we have done a lot of retrofits where there is reduction in kilowatt, means 15 kilowatt pumps is now only 11 kilowatt pumps, and both were delivering same output. 7.5 kilowatt pump is now cut down to 4 kilowatt pump only. So there is flat 50% saving, and the pump is also delivering same output. So this redesigning is very important. And whatever we are investing, say 2 lakh rupees, 3 lakh rupees for 3-4 pumps, that will recover less than 1 year. So it is low hanging fruit. We should immediately think for replacement of these pumps. And there is 20-30% energy saving on existing pump setups with this. Nowadays, the pumping technology again upgraded, similar to what is in the chiller, like magnetic chiller upgradation is in the chiller. Similarly, here there are pumps which are vertical inline pumps. So every OEM is nowadays providing this kind of technology. So there are some advantages which are there, like up to 60% of space saving is there as compared to horizontal pump. There is no need of concrete foundation for installing this kind of pump. These pump will just hang up in the in-out pipe of the header. Then it is very easy in installation, and these can be directly integrated with the pumping system. It reduces the piping cost because it will reduce down the piping length also. There is a reduction in installation cost, and quickly we can install it. There is a reduction in time as well. These pumps are very efficient, means this will save a huge energy cost. So now coming to the selection of cooling towers. This is also very important points, and cooling towers, as we already seen in the last slides, we should select based on the site conditions or the site location. So first, we need to select a right wet bulb temperature. We need to download the wet bulb data of that particular location, and out of that data, we need to see what is the peak wet bulb temperature, and this peak wet bulb temperature is in which month. We need to see all those things. Then we are aware of cooling tower in-out temperature or the condenser in-out temperature for the chiller. Okay, and based on these 3 parameters, we can ask OEM like, do you have for a lesser approach cooling towers? So nowadays there are OEMs who can provide 4 degree F approach cooling towers, 5 degree F and 6-7 degree F, but always try for a lesser approach. So 5 degree F approach is recommended, which is economic in terms of pricing and efficiency, and the cooling tower must be CTI certified. it will be costly, but this will save a huge energy cost for a longer period, and these cooling towers will be reliable. So we need to change our mindset from a normal cooling towers to CTI cooling towers, and we should ask OEM to design the cooling towers on these parameters. Instead of just asking ki, like, give me 20% or 25% extra heat load of the chiller condenser or the chiller. So those are all thumb rule based calculations which does not actually work at site and leads to failure. And one important point is there, uh, always the purchase guy of a building negotiate with the cooling tower OEMs, right? So if there is a non-CTI cooling tower and the purchase guy is asking for the lesser price, that cooling tower OEM will meet his price, but he will give him a small cooling towers. Okay, and we cannot judge that, but when it will come at site, it will not perform, and we can see the size of the cooling tower is very less. But if we are asking, we need a CTI certified cooling towers, and if we are negotiating with that OEM, then he will go up to a value, but he cannot compromise with the quality of cooling tower. He cannot compromise with the material and structure size and all things. He will give that standard size which is certified by cooling tower, cooling technology or cooling tower institute, right? So this point we need to take into consideration. Now there is a myth. We always think like if we run the chiller at the lower load, it will be a efficient operation. Yes, it will be a efficient operation, but not that much. Okay. Second point, instead of running the chiller at lower load, if the chiller is running at 100% load, but we are providing the cool water or the lesser temperature, cooling water entering temperature, then it will save much more energy as compared to running a chiller on the part load. So this can be possible. Lower cooling tower temperature is possible by designing the cooling towers on the right wet bulb temperature or the right ambient temperature of that particular locations, not on the thumb rule based calculations. Now coming to a building management system, we always know like a building management system operates AHU of a building. It regulates two-way valve, three-way valve, pump, chiller and all. One can centralize, operate the building. But nowadays we should think beyond this. There are systems which are cheaper and are capable of integrating each and equipment in such a manner that all the equipment will run in synchronization in a holistic manner, and we can get predictive diagnostics. Means if the equipment is going to be failure, we can predict those failures. We can get alerts for in advance. So those kind of analytics is there in every OEM BMS system. There is feature of energy forecasting. Okay, so energy forecasting can be done based on the previous week energy consumption or the previous day energy consumption. The building pattern can be modified to control the energy consumption of the building without compromising the comfort level, right? So this should be enhanced version of this BMS. Then we have demand based control in a place. So like there are few buildings who are using this kind of BMS, and those are very efficient. So demand based control is again there. The BMS is capable to maintain the right building demand, and parallelly that BMS is able to meet the CO2 or the indoor air quality of the building. So this VMS will modulate the air flow rate or the fresh air flow rate in the dampers of each AHU, and that will be based on the ambient conditions. So like in winter, we can utilize the fresh air and we can reduce down the cooling load on the chillers, but parallelly we need to take care for the CO2 value as well. Like in summers, if CO2 is getting high and we need fresh air, extra fresh air from outside, there should be a balance between two parameters. So this is again beyond BMS, which we are having in maximum sites in our building. So all those things we should ask before going for a BMS kind of upgradation, before going for installing new system, right? And this is not much more costly. All these solutions are available in cheaper price, or just we need to incorporate all these technology, all these things in the place. So now I will conclude my session, and the floors are open for the question answers, please.
Yeah, Shashi, thank you for the session. So it was very interesting and knowledgeable session. So I'll put some question which has been asked during the chat box. I'll start with the first question which has been asked in the chat box. So the Mr. Pushkar has asked the question, any recommendation for refrigerant, and do share the parameters as well.
Yes, there are some regulations is there, means there are some data available wherein there is a explanation regarding use of refrigerant. So nowadays, like as we are aware, R22 refrigerant is completely phased out, okay, because of the global warming impact or because of the ozone depletion potential. So those kind of refrigerant 123 is also completely banned. So those kind of information is available, but nowadays maximum or the most of the OEMs are using R134A, which is a eco-friendly refrigerant and which does not have any toxic effect or any environmental impacts. So those are friendly, user-friendly refrigerant. Yeah.
Thank you, Shashi. There's another question which people are asking: what is the normal life of a chiller?
Yeah.
Talk about, yeah.
So this is actually very, means the question is I should say a diplomatic question, because the life of the chiller is completely depends on the operating pattern of that particular machine. Okay. So as per, if you will talk about the standard, so ASHRAE recommends a normal life of a chiller is 15 years. Okay. But there are many customers, there are buildings where the chillers are running more than 20 years, 25 years, and there is not much more efficiency duration in that. So the life of chiller is completely depend on the maintenance and operating practices of that particular site. What kind of water quality we are using, what kind of predictive maintenance we are doing, is all those are timely or not. So it totally depends on the user who is using that machine. But normal life of a chiller is 15 years. Yes.
So in my office, we are running already. It completed 18 years. So we have already completed what the OEM recommends.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you for this clarification. And another question is, what is the limiting value of condenser approach? Because you were discussing the PPT, the approach part, which depend upon the cooling towers and other things. So what is the limiting value of condenser approach?
Yeah. So approach is like the approach parameter actually indicates the fouling in a chiller, right? If approach is higher, then fouling will be higher, and if fouling will be, the heat transfer between refrigerant and the water will be lesser. So it will lead to increase the energy consumption. So as a maximum OEM, yeah, most of the OEM recommends the condenser approach should not be more than 5° F, right? But in Indian scenarios, there are a lot of challenges in water quality. One cannot maintain the water quality easy. So on a safer side, we can take it at 8° F maximum, not more than that. Right.
So after the 8°, we have to do the descaling part.
Descaling part, we should do it if that is once in a year. If there is some site where approach is quickly increasing and we are again doing descaling, means descaling we are doing twice in a year or thrice in a year. It is better to go for a system which is available in the market that is called automatic tube cleaning system. Nowadays, these systems are very cheaper, and these ATCS system can maintain approach less than 3° F or less than 2° F throughout the year. There is no need of descaling.
Okay, and what about that chemical for reducing the hardness of the water? Do you recommend to add the chemical in the water for descaling or what?
Descaling, definitely descaling cannot be alone done without chemicals. Chemical is required there, but it is not recommended to frequently descale the condenser tubes because these chemicals have adverse effect on the copper tubes. So like once in a year, if we are doing descaling, then it is okay. But if twice in a year somebody is doing descaling, that is very that can create a issue in the condenser tube. Then there can be leakage or some kind of problem here in the tubes.
Okay, one question Mr. Arya Amit has asked, for people who are not into the technical role but have to take care of the multiple responsibilities, do you have any such courses for this?
For this kind of things, I don't think courses are not there, but yes, you can try for nominating experts from the building. You can discuss with them. You can take all these details, means regarding maintenance, regarding the chiller efficiency, regarding pump efficiency. You can discuss with the different OEMs, and the OEMs will teach you a lot, right? So because you are in non-technical or purchase position, then there are OEMs who teach about their products. So they will provide you all these information. Then you can ask from your respective teams to gather all those data and compare all things together to have a better decision.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Sovir Yadav is asking what parameter or document we should check if we buy a CTI certified cooling tower.
Okay, so like if you are going to buy a CTI certified cooling tower, first of all, you should be clear on the parameters. What wet valve means that OEM is going to select, and you should be aware the right wet valve temperature. So wet valve temperature plays a major role in selection of cooling tower, and you should ask chiller OEM to share the condenser in-out temperatures, right? Because cooling tower OEM does not know the design parameter of that chiller. So you should help that OEM in getting the data from the chiller OEM. So now you have wet valve temperature, chiller in-out temperature, and you can try for a lesser approach. You can sit with the cooling tower OEM. You can ask for different selections considering the existing condition, right? So based on these three parameters, you can ask for a selection. And when you are placing order to that OEM, then after that, before delivery, he will ask for a technical go ahead for the manufacturing clearance. So you should match that technical clearance page with the offer which you have placed the order. So both should be same. So it means there is no issue in the parameters. Also, you can cross check those models on the CTI certified cooling tower website, wherein you can check that this OEM is CTI certified from the CTI.
Okay, another question Mr. Hemant Nagpal is asking, what is the first check when HVAC stop working? What should we check first? So
Okay. So if a complete is actually, this question is completely there are a lot of factors which needs to be checked. If the complete system is not working, that definitely first we need to check the power in the machine, right? If that is there, then we need to check flow rate is there, pump is running or not, because these two immediately will stop the chiller. Is there any warning on the chiller display? And we need to correlate those warnings with the respective reason. And this is all about, because pumping and flow rate and power will be the major factor in stopping the complete HVAC. Yeah.
Okay, Shashi, when you were going through the slide, I was seeing the vertical inline pump and horizontal pump you were explaining. So I have my one question regarding what is the cost difference between vertical pumps and horizontal pumps? Well, what is the tentative payback if one go for the pump replacement? Because
Okay.
the major role of the pump plays in the chiller. So can you please
Right.
elaborate it?
Yes. So, like if we are going for a replacement with vertical inline pump, which are completely new in the market, right? So those kind of pumps will give you additional 20-25% saving over horizontal pump, right? So those kind of additional investment will help you in getting the additional energy savings. So if you will calculate those energy savings, the payback will be less than 1.5 years. All those investment, and the investment will not be more than 30%. Okay, there is an investment of 30%, around 30%, up to 30%, that can be recovered in less than 1 year or 1.5 years, which again depends on the running hours of that particular building. If running hours are higher, then you can recover that in 8 months, 6 months. If running hours are lesser, it can go up to 1 year or 2 years, 1.5 years, or maximum 2 years also it can go. Yes.
Thank you, Shashi, for the clarification. The another question, Sanjay Kumar Surprise asking, what do you mean by the real world data you mentioned in your PPT?
Yes. So, like as real world data is totally site-based efficiency mapping, right? My means one is chiller efficiency. Generally, the chiller OEM provides the efficiency on 2 points. Okay, means full load efficiency, part load efficiency, that is NPLV. If you will ask, he will provide you more 4-10 point efficiency. Okay, but to this real world efficiency is totally different. This efficiency is for your building profile. First, we need to uh, study the building load pattern of that particular building. Then we need to fill all those logbooks in the system. Then we need to derive based on that load pattern what is the proposed efficiency of new chiller. We need to map the new chiller efficiency in such a way that can meet the load requirement of the existing building on each and every point. So those kind of calculations, there are a lot of calculations which derive real world efficiency, which are actual on the ground. One can meet those kind of savings. One can guarantee those kind of savings actually, and those are totally different from NPLV and full load. One cannot take decision based on both, but one should take decision on the real world efficiency. I answered this question. I hope, sir, I answered the question rightly.
Yes.
Thank you. So, any more questions?
Just a sec. People are asking. So people are asking how to convert TR to kilowatt in terms of HVAC.
Okay. So we should know the first we should know the efficiency of the system, HVAC system. If we are aware about the kilowatt per TR of overall plant room or the chiller, then we can divide TR. We can multiply TR by efficiency. That will give us the input power in terms of kilowatt.
So, Shashi, the question is how to convert the TR to kilowatt.
Okay, so actually this is actual input kilowatt. If they are asking just as a conversion of unit, then this kilowatt should be divided by 3.516. That will give us the TR. Or we can multiply TR into 3.516. It will give us the kilowatt.
Okay.
Okay.
So one more question which has been asked: how to check the cycle of HVAC is working as per the defined parameters? Can we check it manually? Also, if not, error on the display.
Can you repeat again, sir?
Yeah, is there how to check the cycle of the HVAC system is working as per the defined parameters?
Okay, so for this actually we need to know first the design parameters of that particular machine. We should be aware of the efficiency of that particular machine at each point, means on a particular loading, on particular condenser entering temperature. We should have a design efficiency on all those points. So if we have the design values, then in actual we can calculate the efficiency of that machine using various equipments, and we can derive that efficiency on a particular parameters. Then we can compare both the design and actual value to derive the deviations and problem. So this kind of information will not give any fault on the display or information on the display. You will see the machine is working absolutely fine, but there is some lag in the efficiency. So for that, you need all the efficiency data from that chiller OEM for the comparison purpose.
Okay, Shashi, we are running for the time, so I'll ask the last question. Okay, Mr. Hemant has asked it to calculate size of for AC. We have calculated BTU of the location. So he's asking how to calculate BTU easily if not on software.
Okay, so actually this depends on the area of that particular means purpose. What is the purpose of that particular workplace? If there is some comfort cooling, comfort conditioning is there, then this TR per square feet will be different. If there is some manufacturing setup, then this value will be different, right? So first we need to have a clarity on the application. So for a comfort purpose, the value of tonnage is like people uses 200 to 250 square feet per TR. Okay, so which generally matches with the ASHRAE recommendations also. So this is for comfort cooling. If the application is different, then this value will be different accordingly.
Okay, guys, I think so. Mr. Shashi has covered most of the questions, and still, if you have any question regard to that, we can come further with new sessions. And you know that GS is also planning to do a. We have a division called School of Excellence. We are planning to conduct a new training session for those who are technical or non-technical people. So you can get in touch with those SOE team. It will definitely give you more knowledge on the technical part if you are not a technical person. And I would like to thank you, Mr. Shashi, for this wonderful session, and hope he has cleared all everybody's questions and added some knowledge to the session. And that's all. And over to Jatin, if you want to say anything, Jatin.
I think thank you so much, Shashiji. This is quite a detailed session, and many of our participants are also looking for if the PPT can be shared with them. So we'll look for a way out. And as Vivekji has already mentioned that we are going to get these courses available under the School of Excellence platform as well. So we'll look forward it from there. So once again, thank you so much, all the participants, for taking out time. And Shashiji, once again, thank you so much. We are signing off now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all participants. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shashi. Thank you, everybody.
So just from my side, hi. We shall continue to have such wonderful sessions, such knowledgeable session. So please do join.
Definitely, Sanjay. We'll plan soon another session. Okay. Thank you, Sanjay.
Great. Great.
Thank you, everybody.